The Xbox Series X is on fire! Well, not literally, with a hot start of system sales that should please Microsoft. Retromania Wrestling finally gets a concrete release date, and must I say, a really cool Easter egg. And finally, it appears that 4 new Nintendo Switch games have potentially leaked this morning, and there's some very interesting titles in here that we definitely need to go over. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome, greetings, and salutations. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and like button before you leave. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So last week was obviously a very big week for the world of video games because 2 new systems came out. Well, really 4 new systems came out when you think about it. The Xbox Series X, of course, came out on Tuesday. The PlayStation 5, of course, came out on Thursday. The Xbox Series S came out on Tuesday, and the PlayStation 5 All Digital Edition came out on Thursday as well. Now, obviously, I gave the nod to the PlayStation 5 in terms of the launch games available for the system. We've done many videos on both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, including a comparative video that went up yesterday on the channel, so make sure you guys check out all of that coverage. Lots of good stuff in there and lots of good feedback from you guys. You guys really seem to enjoy those videos. But obviously, one thing that a lot of people were looking forward to were the sales of the Xbox Series X. Let's be realistic, the Xbox One did not sell all that great in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it was a complete failure or anything like that, but the system got off to a pretty sluggish start, and it never really seemed to pick up the momentum that Microsoft probably wanted it to. Well, it does look like the Xbox Series X is off to a very hot start in terms of sales. It had a very successful launch according to Microsoft, outselling the launches of previous systems that they have released, such as the original Xbox, the original Xbox 360, and of course the Xbox One. And many reports are saying that it was over 1 million units sold thus far, which is obviously very impressive. You know, we're kind of in the middle of a big health issue right now, so obviously getting these systems was pretty hard, and yeah, probably a lot of scalpers also got their hands on these systems, but at least when it sort of came down to it, with the Xbox Series X, it was a little bit easier to understand when these pre-orders were going to go available for the system, more so than the PlayStation 5, which was just completely random. Now, Microsoft, of course, hasn't released any official numbers of the sales of these systems because, I don't know, they never seem to really do that. They just sort of like dodge around and like give you weird figures instead of actual sales figures. But according to various reports, they have the Xbox Series X at selling about 1.2 to 1.4 million in the launch week of the system. And when it comes to total sales, it appears that the Xbox Series X actually outsold the Xbox Series S roughly 2 to 1, which is very interesting to think about. Now, I think the Xbox Series S is a really cool system for someone that's more of a casual gamer who just wants to experience next generation games because of the fact that it's only a $300 system, whereas the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 by extension are both premium systems coming in at $500. So you would have to imagine that Phil Spencer, good old Snake Oil Phil, and the rest of the team over at Microsoft are very pleased about these initial sales for the Xbox Series X. One area of concern, though, has to be with momentum of the system. Obviously, it doesn't really have many key titles coming out in the first half of 2021. When you look at the PlayStation 5, there's a lot of games coming out, such as Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and of course Gran Turismo 7 for the PlayStation 5. So I think when it comes springtime, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Xbox Series X performs in terms of sales. But overall, so far so good. I think it's a great system. Like I said, I've done a ton of videos on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Make sure you guys check those out after watching these if you're sort of on the fence about both of these systems to learn all the nitty-gritty stuff. But yes, very cool stuff indeed. Next up, you might remember last year, I did one of the coolest videos I've ever done on this channel, and it was an absolute honor to do it. It was announcing a game called Retromania Wrestling as coming to the Nintendo Switch. I had my good old buddy Stevie Richards from WWE, ECW, WCW, Impact, ROH fame. Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards! And of course, the team over at Retrosoft Studios allowed me to introduce the Nintendo Switch version of the game. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with what Retromania Wrestling is, it is the successor, the sequel, the official sequel now, to the greatest arcade wrestling game of all time, WWF WrestleFest. If you're someone who's in there, you know, early 30s, mid 30s, late 20s, you probably played WrestleFest in the arcade. You would know how awesome it is. I'm a huge WrestleFest fan. I'm wearing WrestleFest shorts right now. I have a custom arcade one-up dedicated to WrestleFest. WrestleFest. So this game was obviously very, very cool. It's going to have real wrestlers from various organizations such as Johnny Nitro, or Johnny Retro as he's known in the game, or John Morrison from the WWE, ECW legends like Tommy Dreamer, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. So a very cool game. Now, it's obviously something we've been looking forward to when it comes to the release of the game. The game was originally supposed to come out over the summer, but like I said, health issues, you know, pandemic and crap like that, the game obviously got delayed. Well, yesterday they announced a brand new trailer for the game. So obviously the big announcement from this was the fact that Retromania Wrestling now has a concrete release date for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, that being a February 26th release date. So yeah, we do have to wait a little bit longer, but really I'm super looking forward to this game. As someone who is a fan of WrestleFest, I've obviously been watching the development of this game and everything, and there was a very, very cool Easter egg that I have been hiding from you guys actually in that trailer. So I'll have a link to the trailer in the description box down below, but around the 226 mark, you might see a familiar face. I mean, it's me! It's me! I am in the sequel to WWF WrestleFest, a game that I remember playing at Milford Amusement Center back when I was like 7 years old with my dad, when we went there to play games and go to the batting cages and crap like that. So this is an absolute honor. Now, obviously, when the game does release, I won't be able to do like an actual review of it. I'm going to do a video on it for sure, but obviously I have a bias towards this. I'm not getting any sort of kickback or, you know, anything, some sort of money from being in the game. This was something that they just approached me and they were like, hey, would you like to make a cameo in the game? And I was like, hell yeah, like, can you make me a wrestler? And they were like, no, but you know, we're thinking about doing something with the Too Many Games arena. So that is super cool. I am completely honored to be in there. The other cool piece of information is that this game will also be getting a physical release as well through limited run games a few months after the digital release. If you actually buy the digital release of the game, you get a $5 voucher towards the physical release of the game. So obviously, I mean, I bought the pre-order thing, which was just like an empty case and some cool stickers. I'm completely on board with this, so I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, obviously I'm not going to be able to review it or anything like that, but we're definitely going to do a let's play of it and stuff, because I think the game looks absolutely fantastic. And I mean, the fact that I'm in it just makes it that much cooler, doesn't it? And finally, it was a very busy morning for Nintendo Switch game leaks, and it looks like we have 4 games potentially leaked for the Nintendo Switch. 2 of them pretty being much confirmed. 2 of them, of course, are just leaks through Amazon, so take it as a grain of salt, but I do think where there's smoke, there's fire with this situation. Now, the first 2 games we're going to talk about are actually from Capcom, and unfortunately, these games were discovered in a rather sleazy manner. A group of individuals actually hacked into Capcom's database and got information about stuff, slideshows. I'm not going to show any of that stuff because that's highly sensitive material. There's a bunch of stuff that was discovered in this data breach, including some very interesting aspects of Resident Evil 8, but I'm really going to let other people talk about that because I honestly don't want to spoil anything when it comes to that game. For myself personally, I'm a big Resident Evil fan and I'm really looking forward to that game, so I avoided that. But 2 games were actually discovered for the Nintendo Switch in these official documents. Now, it appears that the Great Ace Attorney and the Great Ace Attorney 2, 2 games which are in the Phoenix Wright franchise, or at least the Phoenix Wright umbrella of the games, that were originally released for the Nintendo 3DS but were never localized. These games were strictly limited to Japan only, and of course, because of the fact that these games were all in Japanese and there's a lot of reading with these games, nobody was really able to import them. It looks like these games are being re-released on the Nintendo Switch, and they're actually doing work with English-speaking voice actors, meaning that localization is pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point. Now, you might remember that the Phoenix Wright trilogy actually came out on the Nintendo Switch, and I have to imagine that sold very well. I never got around to playing the Nintendo Switch versions of the game or anything like that. I played these games originally on the DS with like Miles Edgeworth and Phoenix Wright. I was a big fan of the series. I thought it was very well done. So the fact that these 2 games that were never localized are now potentially coming to the Nintendo Switch, pretty much confirmed if you look at the documents, is I think a very cool thing. Now, this other leak is coming to us from our good old friends at Amazon of France, who just seem to be like the leakiest pipes in the world, and they actually listed 2 games for the Nintendo Switch this morning, 1 game coming in January and 1 game coming in April. Now, the first game is a game that many people actually expected to come to the Nintendo Switch when it was announced, but it never got a confirmation with the Nintendo Switch version, but there's been lots of rumors about it, and that is, of course, is the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. Now, I love the original Prince of Persia Sands of Time, but I'm not really completely sold on the art style of this game. I'm not not going to say the game is necessarily even going to turn out good or anything like that, but considering how good the original game was, I do somewhat have high hopes for this, and I think this would be a really cool game to have on the Nintendo Switch. They were some of the best games. Those Prince of Persia games on the Nintendo GameCube were some of the best games on the system during that time era. It was a very popular franchise that unfortunately just sort of went away. So I'm definitely hopeful that this game is indeed coming to the Nintendo Switch. It is of course confirmed for the PS4 and Xbox One with a January release, but we haven't heard any confirmation on the Switch version. But according to Amazon of France, it does look like it is happening. Now the second game has to be the more interesting one to me personally, because I actually never played this game, but I've heard really great things about it, and supposedly it's a game that I would really be into, and that is Nier Replicant. Now like I said, I never played this game. It originally released on the PlayStation 3, and a remastered edition with some new stuff was announced for current generation consoles that will be releasing in April. And now it seems like the Nintendo Switch will potentially be getting a version of this, as Amazon of France did put up a listing for it. Now, the funniest thing about Nier Replicant has to be how it has an absolutely horrible name for this remaster. It is called Nier Replicant version 1.224744871139. Like, who came up with that name? Who thought that was a good name? Like, that is absolutely terrible. But as long as the game is good, like, who really cares about what the name is? And once again, a Nintendo Switch version of the game was not announced when this game was officially unveiled, but it does appear, according to Amazon of France, that this will be also releasing for the Nintendo Switch in April when it comes out for the other systems. So two of these leaks are pretty much confirmed. The Great Ace Attorney and the Great Ace Attorney 2 are, I feel, definitely coming to the Nintendo Switch, because, I mean, there's like literally slideshow presentation stuff of like the box art and stuff. It clearly says that they're doing work with English voice actors. I'm just not putting any sort of footage of that up because I don't want Capcom to strike this video. Obviously, with Prince of Persia and Nier, you have to take it sort of as a grain of salt because it could just be an inaccurate listing. But at the time of the filming of this video, these listings are still up on Amazon of France's website. So I do think where there's smoke, there's fire with this situation. Now, are any of these 4 games interesting to you? Would you like to play any of these games? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, so that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. Did you manage to get an Xbox Series X or an Xbox Series S, or do you like the PlayStation 5 better, or did you get neither of them because the pre-order situation was absolutely horrible? Retromania Wrestling, are you looking forward to it? Because I sure as hell am. And these 4 Nintendo Switch games that leaked this morning, do you think these leaks are true, or are you thinking, you know, they're not true and I don't care about these games and, you know, whatever. And as always, folks, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. Like I said, we've been doing a ton of videos around here lately. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X stuff. Next generation is here, and I am excited for it. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.